So sitting here today, Mr. Marcus, after all the times Facebook has abused the public's trust, and you know that, do you really think people should trust Facebook with their hard-earned money? You really think people should trust you with their bank accounts in our economy? I just think that's delusional. I'd like to see how much you and your company trust it. You get a paycheck in dollars, I assume. Will you pledge today in this committee that you and your team who are working on this project will accept 100% of your salary and other compensation in this Facebook currency?
Senator, Libra is not designed to compete with bank accounts or to compete with those things.
Do you trust your currency so much that you and your team are willing to see 100% of your compensation be paid to you in that currency?
Senator, if your question is whether I would trust all of my assets in Libra, the answer is yes, I would.
That was Facebook's head of blockchain development, David Marcus, speaking to Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown during the Senate Banking Committee's hearing on the social media company's giant leap into cryptocurrency. The hearings, which sent crypto into a quick nosedive, followed tweets by President Donald Trump that essentially blew a hole in the dreams of countless politicized hodlers. A month earlier, Facebook announced it had partnered with 27 corporate and nonprofit members, including Visa, Uber, and the cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase, to launch the Geneva-based Libra Association. Backed by a portfolio of currencies, stable assets, and government bonds, Libra is intended to become a reliable means of payment for all 2 billion users of Facebook's ecosystem. Since the announcement, a number of governments, advocacy groups, and central banks have raised tumultuous controversy for the would-be stablecoin.
Most major corporations one day will have their own coin, similar to most major corporations eventually made their own website. This is an inevitable evolution of the industry.
This past week, Facebook executives spent hours on Capitol Hill in 2 congressional hearings defending the new initiative from Facebook's tainted reputation and a general mistrust of cryptocurrencies. Libra, Marcus intimated, was a new page not only for the social media company, but for the world. With a release plan for 2020, Marcus said Libra will be fully compliant with all regulatory bodies. As of today, a number of top financial watchdogs have called for a close scrutiny of the project.
En revanche, que ça devienne une monnaie souveraine, il ne peut pas en être question. Ça ne peut pas et ça ne doit pas devenir une monnaie souveraine.
So, Mr. Marcus, you responded to a request by members of this committee for a moratorium on your activities by stating that you would continue to work with regulators before going forward. But if the regulators lack the authority to adequately oversee you, how can you work with them to resolve concerns? Will you stop kind of dancing around this question and commit here in this committee before the duly elected representatives of the American people to a moratorium until Congress enacts an appropriate legal framework?
I agree with you that this needs to be analyzed, understood, and the proper oversight needs to be set up before Libra can launch. This is my commitment to you, Chairwoman. We will take the time to get this right.
Marcus explained that Libra will not attempt to supersede the role of central banks in printing money and setting monetary policy. But when asked if he would agree to pilot the blockchain in front of the Federal Reserve and the Securities and Exchange Commission, he declined. On July 18th, a full month after Libra's announcement, a coalition of consumer advocacy groups urged in an open letter to the 28 members of the Libra Association to quit the Facebook-led cryptocurrency project en masse. Senator Brian Schatz, for his part, thinks these multinationals are being jawboned or pushed into the project by the fear of missing out.
So what I'm hearing, and they're terrified to talk about this publicly, is that members of the consortium actually have lots of questions too, similar to the questions that are being offered on this dais, and they have great reservations about moving forward, but they don't want to be left out because of Facebook's market power.
So, is Facebook hogging the limelight again? Though launched only with 28 members who had to commit $10 million to sign on as a node and validator on the Libra blockchain, Facebook itself will only have 1% of the governing council's votes. Yet they have received 100% of the media attention. Despite the fracas that has played out over the course of the past month, some prominent names think that Facebook and its cryptocurrency project are frankly small potatoes. Jamie Dimon wasn't even sure if someone at his corporation had spoken to the firm. This past week he said, quote, "We're going to be talking about Libra 3 years from now. I wouldn't spend too much time on it. To put it in perspective, we've been talking about blockchain for 7 years, and very little has happened."